Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. This is the monthly report, and this is the monthly report for February 2025. So, with me on the line, I have Brett Geddes, mate. So, welcome back to the show.
This is fantastic. Hey, Deethy, poddy number 2. Never thought we'd get
Potty
there.
number.
This is going good. I've got lots of news, and I hope you do too.
I do, mate. I do. We have a bunch of stuff to get through. We got some good feedback on the last one and a couple of questions. So, happy we'll run into those. But what I might do is roll the intros, and then we'll get into it after that. So, here we go.
Welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. This is where you need to be every Tuesday to find out all the latest tips and tricks to help you target bream on lures. You'll get to hear from some of Australia's elite bream competition anglers and see how they were able to achieve their results in competitions around the country. Now, here's your host, the 2019 Hobie Kayak Fishing World Champion, Andrew Deeth.
All right. So I was just thinking about that intro. I was going to say it's every Tuesday, but sometimes Thursdays.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. So this is when will this one be out? This will be. I'm trying to.
Well,
What are you thinking?
it might be Tuesday next week. I'm not quite sure. It depends how we go getting it edited. It might be Tuesday, but it will be Tuesday or Thursday, which will be
4 or 5 days.
the first
So
week of February.
yeah. So you record this, and then it. Yeah. Okay. That's good. That
Yeah.
works fine.
So yeah, it should be pretty good. So, mate, what we might start with is I want to do, as we're sort of evolving this format, I want to run through what's going to happen in the tournament calendar over the next 30 days or so. And then from there, we'll roll into, you got some extra special stuff to talk about. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good stuff.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. So as this time of year, the tournaments are starting to get fired up. So this weekend, it'll be just gone by the time this comes to air. Saturday, the 1st of February, we've got 2 comps on. We've got the action fishing tournaments on the Georges River, and we've got the Bream Masters South Australia. They're running out of Port River in Port Adelaide. Moving on to next week. Then we've got the first round ever, the inaugural round of the New South Wales Tournament Series. That will be held on the Hawkesbury River. So 9th of February. Then moving into the 18th of February, Mum's birthday, we're headed down to the ABT Bream for the first round of the ABT for the year in Gippsland Lakes. So that's going to be
big. Gonna be big.
Yep. So Tuesday, Wednesday. And then following that up on the Saturday and Sunday, the ABT is heading back up to Malakuta. So that's 22nd, 23rd. And then rounding out the month is the first of the Hobie round. So this is the first ones where they've tried the double headers.
Yeah.
And what was meant to be Lake Tyres is now on Gippsland Lakes. So
Oh, can't wait.
I think that's pretty cool. I know you've got some feedback on that.
This is the time Gippsland's really going to shine. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Very good. And then now the other thing, now we haven't spoken about this, but there's a bit of pressure coming your way, mate.
Okay. What to do the comps?
To do something.
Oh,
yep.
okay.
Bem River.
Do tell.
Bem River, mate. I've had a couple of people say, how good would it be to get Geddes up there?
Sheepers.
What's the biggest round of the year? Most likely.
100, 120 would there be, or?
I don't know how they'll go this year. We'll
Okay.
see. We'll see. Because it's been there's been a bit of time delay in getting things out and running.
Yeah.
It may be a bit dialed back. Either way, it'd be great to see 120. It's an amazing atmosphere.
Even 80 is incredible. But it's usually 100. I watch it. I see it. Yeah.
I think it'll be 100.
Oh, it's got to be.
Yeah.
People love the place.
Mate, I think if you came along, mate, we might even get 130.
Oh, jeepers. Oh, so you'll be doing it naturally.
Yeah, I'll be heading to BEM. It's unlikely, just due to work commitments, I can get to Gippsland Lakes. I'd love to go there, but it's
the pressure's
I
on.
can't leave the job.
Well, we physically haven't shook hands, have we? So only digitally.
Yeah, that's
what
it.
Sounds wrong, actually. Anyway.
Well, anyway, like we're throwing it out there.
Okay.
It's been spoken about. So what I'm suggesting people do is just get in touch with you. A bit of encouragement going Brett's way would be kind of good.
Okay. This is talk about the collective. This is like a collective shot at me to come on, get your act into gear, Geddes. It's funny.
That's it. It's like let's get out of your comfort zone
Funny.
and come along.
Mm.
Anyway, it's up to you at the end of the day. So
Okay. Leave that with me.
very good. All right. So mate, so that's what's coming up in the next month on the tournament calendar.
Lot on.
So moving on from there, mate. Now you've got some stuff going on at Bem River. Do you want to tell us about what's been going and what you expect to go on?
Bem River. That place is. I've talked a lot about Bem River in the last 5 or 6 years because I was sort of getting worried with the fact that it's one of those places that it gets a huge patronage from both lure anglers and bait anglers, and let's be honest, it would Bem River would probably fill more eskies with bream fillets than nearly any other fishery in Victoria, maybe the country,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and it's been that way for 60, 80 plus years. Don Cunningham attests to that, and so does a lot of anglers. Like a lot of people make their yearly event Bem River, so
Mm.
quite often I kept thinking, well, it can't sustain this pressure. But guess what? It does. It's probably got the biggest biomass of bream per square metre or per square 100 metres, whatever you wanted to put it at, maybe in the country. It's a big call, black
Yeah.
bream at least. It's a phenomenal thing. And I have seen this and I've noticed this. I've talked this to a lot of people about this, is that the size of bream have really come down in the last 10, 15 years, particularly since I've been fishing it. And it's pretty hard to get one over 38, 40.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
You're talking fork length or tip?
No, tip. Sorry, tip. Yeah, so fork.
Okay.
So fork, I'm talking 35s, 36s would be pushing it. You'll get the odd
Yeah.
fish, but the bags all seem to be, mind you, people, anglers and the comp fellas and ladies too, all getting 60, 70, 80 fish for the two or 3 days with the pre-fish. So there's no shortage of fish, but it's really interesting. I'm not saying from an alarmist point of view is that why are the fish so small. All I know is that the biomass is there, so it probably doesn't matter. Everyone's catching fish. Isn't that the name of the game? It's sort of, mind you, Mitch Chapman was there some time ago, probably 6 months back now, but I think he caught a 48 centimetre in the river.
Wow.
Now, when I hear that for Bem, I go, whoa, that's a bit of a one-off. So
Yeah.
surely there's still a lot of big fish there. So I will digress because going back to the report,
Yeah.
I've got a great mate in Beth Harris. I've got to know her. She works in Sale and she lives locally, so I've got to know her quite well. And she's a keen tournament angler as well. She's done a lot of the ABTs, and now she's got herself a brand new kayak.
Beautiful.
So she went to Bem and Deethy for the long weekend. She racked up 86 bream. And the best part was that she got a couple of real good ones. The best going 40 tip. And her favourite lure is the clone prawn.
Wow.
Which is, and she sticks by it.
Yeah.
And when I've bumped into Beth, she works, as I say, and I'll be doing shopping. I'd go past her shop and I wave. She waves me in and she gave me a packet of clone prawns once. And I said, oh, Beth, thanks for that. I must try them out. And I have, and I've caught fish on them all good. Probably haven't persisted with them, but she does. And she sent me pictures from last weekend, and her prawns were getting, when you catch a lot of fish, they get a bit mangled, and sometimes they slip on the hook and all that. So she used this really unique way of hooking up the clone prawn, almost like bait style. She couldn't feed it on normally, so she put the jig head sideways through the clone prawn. I thought, oh, well, that's my last one. And guess what? Bang, bang, bang.
Yep.
She just kept whacking them. So
Wow.
could be a little bit in that. She did say to me, I end up going Geddes style and went really left of centre and put them on stupid. So it was
Wow. So that's like a wacky rig. She's done wacky rigs with prawns.
the wacky rig, yeah. Now, her
Yeah.
partner, Carl, he also, I think he got 100 Bream, whether they stopped
Wow.
counting around then. But so in a nutshell, is BEM going good? No, it's going better than good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's it.
looks
Yeah,
good for the comp coming up.
that's what I was gonna say. It's very exciting leading into a comp, and this is one of the things I pushed about the BEM comp. There's a few parts to this. In terms of a competition round, everyone's staying in a very central location, so they mostly come to the pub for dinner.
Yep.
So socially, it's a good
Yeah,
round. People tend to hang out.
it is. It's a big
Which
pub too.
Yeah, it's a good pub, and they pump out the food. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
outside, yeah, and
Um,
everything.
the other thing is most people catch fish. It's a rare, like in some comps, only 30% of the people will get their 6 fish for the comp. At Bem River, it's going to be more like 80%.
Oh, gee, I'd put that higher. And some anglers, they're getting 80 to 100 fish for the 3 days, aren't they?
That's
If they
it.
keep
Yeah.
if they keep count. So BEM's all about wading through the numbers because there will be in the top 15 to 20, maybe 150 grams, maybe 300, but I doubt it.
Yeah, that's
Tough
right.
going. So
That's
if you can get those 2 or 3, see, like I said to Beth, you've got that 40. If you happen to get one each day, nearly puts a top 5.
Yeah. Yep.
Nearly.
Even in a big field.
And a really big field. So yeah. So that's a great positive for BEM. It's not surprising, I will say that. The one little offshoot to that is that I had another mate, Brian Lazaro. He went to BEM a little while back, and he caught a few bream, but he wasn't targeting him. He got an absolute mountain of flathead.
Right.
And yeah, it astounds me how tough and resilient flathead are,
Hmm.
and prolific. Another one. He was more so down towards the entrance and out, or in the main channel on the edges, and between himself and 2 or 3 family members, they were 80, 90 more plus flathead. And so what they did, they were there for 3 days. So for a couple of days, they kept putting all their flatties back and said, "Oh well, we might take a feed. We might take 2 or 3 home when when we go." No, they're all oversized because the slot limit, they're all 55 and over. So they had to put them all back because they were too big. Well, that's a great problem to
Wow.
have. So they got them to 70, 71, 72s, I think.
Yeah.
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 And he said the standout lure was the skimp. Yeah,
The
the
skimp.
hurricane skimp. He said, and,
Wow.
and we know maybe flatties aren't so discerning and they'll nearly eat anything, but he said he tried a whole heap of lures and he said that was what was going on. And he,
Yeah.
so he made that quite apparent. And so I love the fact that BEM's got all those flatties. Such a good thing.
Yeah, that's it. And then you've also got up in the not that I've caught them up in the rivers, you got the perch as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So I assume you've got some experience up there.
Yeah, look, I think the perch numbers there have crashed, to be honest. And let me be open on this. I haven't fished BEM for quite some time, but because I've got a circle of mates that are always getting back to me about BEM and especially about the perch because they know I love them. Yeah, the numbers, they're certainly not there as to what I remember, back in 20, 25 years ago when I first started there. So, look, whether that's a cyclical thing or whether maybe people don't target them as much, but I don't think that's the case because when you target bream, you can't not target perch, if you know what I mean.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see a lot of perch getting caught. I just think the bream have taken over as the apex predator in that system.
Yeah, could well be.
Could well be.
Could well be. And what do you like? Okay, so you got the skimp as a bait. What else would you recommend if you headed up to BEM?
I reckon at BEM, like because it's a lot of shallows fishing. This is what BEM's so good. So the bent minnows are a standout for sure. I reckon it's the start of Gippsland. Marlow might be even the start of it really, where black bream respond to surface lures more so. Gippy lakes, they eat them, and I've been getting a few on bents, but it's a slow go. But I reckon once you get to Marlow, and particularly BEM, they respond to that surface stuff. But
Yeah, right.
contradictory to that, I know I've talked to a couple of good mates anglers, particularly in Tony Petty, and he just swears by blades. And he's going to he'll hang me twice now. This is every week, every episode he's going to hang me for dobbing him in. He says, Brett.
Fair
He
enough.
says, Brett, not many people throw the blades at Ben, but they're a killer.
Hey, yep, yep.
But I
Well,
think people know, but it
I-
still takes
mm,
technique to get them.
yeah, exactly. It does take technique, and look, when I won a couple of years ago down there, it was just using baby vibes, which is it's not exactly a blade, but it's kind of the same.
It is.
Like it's still a vibration based bait lure that you fish across the bottom, more or less.
And a small
So-
item. And is it now? Do you fish them fast, or do you vary it on the day? Do you let the fish tell you? How does that work?
Yeah, well, let the fish tell you is part of it. I'd have to go back and listen to that episode, which was I think episode 13. But in that particular round, it was an interesting comp. We had big winds come through. It was pretty horrible, and I didn't have a plan, so I was like, I'm just going to throw the drift chute and just drift across the bay, and that ended up being the plan. And I think I was using Messiahs.
Yeah.
So
10-foot
I was doing
rod.
lots of different things. Yeah, sometimes just a long draw of the rod. With such a long rod, you've got so much movement. Then other times rip and drop, and then just little hops. So that was good technique for down there. And I don't think people would go too far wrong if they just took a drift chute, some blades, even some plastics. Doesn't matter.
Plastic.
Particularly what they are.
Oh, for sure. I think too, in the end, when you get so many anglers on a smallish venue, I think you've got to change things up and maybe throw things that the fish haven't seen. Because at some point, nearly every brim would have seen at least a few lures, if not a dozen, and maybe of the same lure, the popular ones. Maybe that adds up. Maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure, but it's a great venue anyway. As we're discussing, it's I just can't believe the numbers and the fact that BEM has it has survived. Like the pressure, it's incredible. Like the amount of fish that come out of it. And I'm not being nasty about this and saying, meat eaters and all the rest. But I eat brim. I'll take a feed of brim home. But there are people that go, particularly the older fellas now, that have been going for that 30, 40, 50 years and first started when they were kids with their mum and dad. There's a lot of those people, and it sustains. It's
surprising. The other thing that's interesting about, if you talk about the old timers that are doing that, if you go back, I don't know, X number of years, 50 years, they were all throwing bait.
True.
And now we've converted a bunch to all sorts of different types of lures, which I think is pretty incredible.
That is incredible. And I remember when I first met Don Cunningham, he was just starting off into lures then, because he had the BEM bomb with the big sinker, and you put a pole at the back of the boat and you anchor up the front. He was very specific about all that, and he was one of the first to very quickly adapt to lure fishing. And geez, he was so successful. And I think too now what happens is a lot of those boat anglers into their 70s and even 80s maybe, they're even throwing lures. They have baits out, but they see what we do on lures and they have a little dabble, and it turns into something bigger.
Yes.
So I've found that the 70 and plus year olds, they're all got lures on board. They go out and have a little dabble. So that's it's an interesting thing.
I mean, the other thing that while you're talking is when they did the videos with Starlo and Bushy, when they did the squidgy videos.
Yep.
And I could be wrong on this, but I always thought they're down in BEM or Malakuta, or when they did some of those videos, and I don't know whether you know or not.
Yep.
But yeah, I figured they were down in those systems.
Oh, I fished with Steve Starling at BEM back in 2001 or 2 maybe. I had a weekend away with Steve. It was a wonderful thing early on in my riding and career, as far as being involved with magazines and whatnot. And Steve Starling took me out, and Bushy was the instigator. He was back then they were incredible, and even now there were incredible numbers. He was getting like 70, 80, 90 bream a day, and they were
Yeah.
on the Bass Pro paddle tail. It's almost like it was a brownie. It wasn't a motor oil color, but it was the lure, and it was only way we could get it was from America. And so, like Bushy had a couple of hundred of them, and Steve was using them. First time, nearly, he was only just starting to dabble in them, and he was using them unweighted, high stick, and running them across the top of the water, and they were hitting the lure back then, the bream, and
Wow.
getting numbers, and it was fantastic. And then, shortly after, the squidgies come out, and I'm sure some of the shoot would have been there. Well, Malakuta where Bushy really cut his teeth on it all, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And Starlow's the first to admit that he followed suit. He wasn't great angler. He introduced me to plastics that very trip way back.
Right.
Stayed at the Cozy Nook with Don Cunningham, and it was a good start to my career. I can assure you. I was using big hard bodies. They were Prince lures, about 90 mil.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, really rudimentary. And I remember this too. This is funny. I have to comment on this. I'm going with Steve Starling, you ripper. So I was a fly fisherman essentially, and I turned up and bream. I don't know what's a bream rod. I don't know. Oh, there's an old rod, and I gave it to Steve to put in the boat. One rod and another one I pulled out. The first rod I gave to him, he said, "Brett, that looks like a tomato steak. That's not coming on my boat." I said, "Okay." I said, "What about this one?" He says, "Hop in." And anyway, so long story short, that was pretty much the start of my soft plastic career. I remember I got a perch on my very first cast with those soft plastics because
Wow.
back then, do you think soft plastic? What does this mean? Bream don't eat these or what? Nah. Oh yeah. So that was good beginnings.
Definitely. Good beginnings. Interestingly, starting at BEM, and I didn't know that before I asked the question. So,
Good stuff. Yeah.
Very good. And the other thing I haven't seen down there too much, they get whiting down there at all?
You get a few, I reckon, yellowfin whiting. I don't recall catching any myself, and I don't hear a lot about it, which is a little interesting because you get them at Marlow more so. You definitely get them at Wingen, which is further on, and a lot at Malakuta. In fact, Tony Petty caught one over Christmas, 54 centimetres, if you don't mind, on a hard body.
Wow.
Yellowfin.
Didn't know all about that.
Can you believe that one? That was a bit of an eye-opener. 54 on a hard body.
Yeah.
That's a PB to beat, that one.
Absolutely. That is a cracking fish. And 44 is a good fish.
Yeah. Too right. So
all right. So mate, moving on from Bem River, what else is going on, mate?
Oh, Gippy Lakes. Boy, there's so much to talk about, Davey. I don't know really quite where to start. It's
you've been down there, haven't you?
Yeah. No, I've fished today. Yeah. I've caught 70 bream today. So 46 centimetres. Yeah. I've had an absolute crack of a day. I'll get back to that. I want to go a little bit backwards because it's important to, with the comps coming up, because there's a few comps. Like there's the Hobie, there's the ABT. Is there MLF as well? 3 of them?
There could be. I didn't track the MLF yet.
Don't know.
So quite possibly.
Anyway, so what I'm excited about is that Gippy Lakes are going so well is that it's going to showcase some of the best bream fishing in the country, full stop, end of story, Tassie inclusive. It's the I don't know how it's quite happened. People will say, "Oh, Brett, the netting's been, or the no netting has been so important, and it's been the result of so many fish." Has to help, but I don't think that's. I think it's actually, to be honest, I reckon it's about 10 or 20% of it.
Right.
And as an angler, I should pump it up and say, "Oh, it's 50%. It's the only reason." But I'm a realist, and I'm going to tell it how it is. I think it's because we've had so much rainfall. We've had a lot of floods in the last 4 or 5 years since the netting's been banned.
Okay.
The Gippy Lakes have just been rejuvenated. It could be a cyclical thing. Maybe it's a 10 or 20 year cycle where no one's really done the studies. Like fisheries do, they do netting surveys. They do trawl netting in all the rivers and even in a few lakes in areas. So they would have record of this, but I don't care what anyone says. The amount of bream and the sizes of them in the last 3 to 4 years has just gone from level to level. And today I'm saying it's at its best that I've seen.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of the old bait anglers from years back would say, "Oh, we filled spud bags from the banks of the Mitchell River every day, and we just took them home to
Yeah.
show everyone, and then we'd give some away and then tip the rest in the bin."
Oh, wow.
And I'm not making that up. I think that actually went on. So, but it was a different era. If you and I were there, Deethy, we'd probably do the same. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think we said in the last episode, when I was a kid, I definitely wanted to nail a big flathead head on a tree, but we wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that now.
No. Well, am I right in saying this? You love to fish too much to do that now, don't you?
Oh, especially big fish. Yeah.
Like forget about keeping the numbers and keeping the big breeders and that. You sort of adore them and love them too much because you're a different angler now.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's apart from, well, now legally you can't do it anyway because they're outside the slot limits.
That's true.
But yes,
true that.
So
yeah.
yeah.
And let me just sidetrack a little on the flathead while we've got that up and running. They're still going in the Gippy Lakes. Since we've talked last, I think I was on 97 big dusky flathead. I think we talked about that. And I've upped that a little. I've been out with me buddy Brian Lazaro, and I've done a solo trip. Now I'm up to 118 big dino flats, as I call them.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got it's taken 14, maybe 15 trips. That could be now. So it's taken a lot of casts. I'd love to tell you how many casts I've done because it's thousands. That's the thing about flathead, getting the big ones. All that is required is 1,000 casts times 10.
Exactly. Well, on that note, all right. So if somebody's headed down to Gippsland and maybe they're not sort of your professional tournament angler or whatever, and they just want to get a couple of decent flathead, you got any advice for them?
100%. This is easy. It goes like this. I was only on the phone with Mitch Chapman about probably 4 hours ago, and he did exactly what we're talking about. He said, "I want to catch a few big duskies. I've got a few spare hours. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go?" So he launched the big numbers of flathead between Kalimna, which is near the entrance, and up to, say, Meetung, and in between there's Nungurna and a few other spots. That's still right now, that is the best spots to get the numbers of flathead and the sizes.
Sure.
He got 2, I think, and dropped 2, but he was only at it for a couple of hours. But then he expanded into talking about other mates that he's been keeping in the loop with, and they're getting quite serious, big numbers still in that area. And there's been a lot on YouTube. There's been Brendan Wing, and there's been Lee Rayner and whatnot. So you can look all that up. And as much as they might not like me saying it, I know they're in that area. And outside that, I've got another buddy, Rick Formica. He lives at Paynesville, and today he went out and he caught 2 and dropped 2, and that was around Raymond Island.
Okay.
So these places are they're full of people, they're full of boats, they're full of structure, they're easy to get to. It's not hard. So now go back to what lures. You know what? They're flathead. It doesn't matter. I know that sounds a little flippant, and everyone wants to say, "Oh yeah, I use big lures. You get a big flathead with a big lure." Yeah, that's cool, and I know it works, but nah, I don't agree with that. I just think you've got to just put something in front of them, and they're going to eat it. And it could be a blade, and it could be. I think a bigger lure, they're going to see it better. Yeah.
Hmm.
But as long as that lure's bouncing on the bottom and the target area or depth would be, the only water too shallow is dry ground when it comes to these big duskies. But
Hmm.
really, it's half a metre to 3 metres maybe, and below 3 they don't really hang out there. So it's too hard to eat bait when you get deeper as a flathead.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I mean, the shallower it is, if a bait comes over and that's the top of the water here, and you go to attack, you can't go far. But if you're in
Sure.
20 metres or 10 metres or 5, that bait can go a lot of ways, up and down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the flatties may go and sulk deep and they may hang out there deep at some point and ultimately still be caught there. But I think the shallows is where you want to be. So,
Yeah.
the equation isn't hard. And the other thing too is to give even newbies a bit of advice. Just spy on the ones that are doing it. Keep an eye.
Yeah. Okay.
The locals have got the knowledge, and if someone's or 2 or 3 boats have been working an area, an edge, certain depth, you don't want to barge in on top of them, but they're going to give you clues and cues on how to get those flathead, and you'll see them catching them. So
Yeah.
they're still getting them as much as they must have seen hundreds and hundreds of lures. You sort of feel sorry for the big flatties because they're, people call them
Yeah.
dumb, but I just call them ultra predators. They're just made for eating. So,
They are just made for eating. Mate, if you bumped into say you bumped into a novice in a shop, you bumped into, say, a 14-year-old kid, he hasn't fished, his parents don't fish.
yeah,
And he's got 20, $30 in his pocket.
yeah.
And he's got to buy something. What would you point him in the direction of as your most sort of maybe universal?
To get the flatties only?
To get a flathead. Yeah, to get a flathead.
If that was his main aim, to get a big flatty, I'd say
Or even just a flathead.
or
just
any
a flathead.
flathead, I'd say 1/4 ounce jig head, size 10 hook, and a 90 mil plastic, say Z-Man minnows with the Z on there.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what colour, but go the mullet shiny silver colour maybe, or pink if you really want to leerise it a bit, but it doesn't matter to the flatties. And by the very nature of that lure being heavy, it's going to bounce on the bottom, whether you're fishing 1 metre or 4. So I don't think that's going to worry. But eventually a flathead's going to bump into that lure, and you'll get a little bit of bycatch of brim, and you'll get tailor and salmon and all that. So for an absolute novice, if that was his number one goal, I'd say that's a great start. If you put him onto big lures too early, or her, hard to cast, and cost a lot of money. $30 ain't going to cut it. And you can buy a packet of Z-Mans, and you can, get even the shop owner to rig up a few for you and take them out. You're going to catch flathead.
Yeah.
You'll get them.
Yeah.
And they'll be all sizes. That's the best part.
Okay. So being a brim fisherman, I probably would have done it just slightly differently.
Yeah, right.
So, like, I've caught the amount of flathead that I've caught on a 2.5 inch slim swim, Z-Man slim swim in motor oil.
Yeah. Okay.
And maybe up to a 1/8 weight of hook. So a bit lighter. So definitely harder for a novice to cast.
Maybe. Yeah.
But
what depth?
All depths.
All depth.
Yeah, like
interesting.
Yeah, we up to 3 or 4 meters, let's say.
Yep.
And I've also caught a lot of dewies doing that. So a lot of mulloway on little tiny lures and hooks.
Oh, for sure.
And just, set your drag accordingly. Like, you can't set your drag heavier than your hook or your line or than your rig.
Yep.
And just like even even a reasonable mulloway, as long as it doesn't spool you, you're just going to tire it out.
Yeah, true.
So
yeah.
Same with a big flathead. As long as you can lift it. If you get a big flathead, land-based, if he puts himself on the bottom, sometimes you're not going to move it.
That's very true. Yeah.
But it's a good problem.
Yeah, and you'll also get a lot of brim doing what you're saying.
That's right.
As another, and even like ludric and maybe a whiting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's-
Yeah. Multi-species.
Well, I mean, honestly, if I were to say use blades on the flathead, that's like everyone says if anyone can catch fish on blades. I don't think that's quite right. They take a little specific technique. So for a newbie, I don't think blades are quite there, but to ultimately catch flathead easily, blades are definitely number one. Definitely.
Yeah. Wow.
Definitely. 100%. Because if you've got a little bit of fishing now and you've got maybe 6 months behind you or a couple of years or you've caught fish on blades before, they are the number one flathead killer. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
that. No doubt. You can cast them so long. The long cast alone, Deethy, is enough. Like such a
Yeah.
small item, and they don't foul up much, or you can cover the bottom, and you get all that bycatch. Whew,
Yes.
what doesn't a blade
Yeah.
catch? So yeah. So the flathead are still going good, Gippy Lakes. I'm trying to get back on track here.
Yeah. Come back to Gippy Lakes because we're going to go over blades in a minute.
We are, yes.
So,
We've had some
yeah.
questions, haven't we? Which is really great.
There we go. We've had some feedback.
I got to talk Bream. Okay, today's 70 Bream, best 46. I got a 45 and a half. I got one just under 44. Hobie comp. Oh, look, Hobie comp. This is me.
Yeah.
I reckon a bag, Gippy Lakes, maybe, what is that? 1, 2, 3. Probably 4 kg. Yeah.
Wow.
3. Yeah, I reckon. Because the big, yeah, it would be.
We've seen bags that big out of Marlow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And a 5-bag fish for ABT, I reckon maybe 7, 6.5, 6, 8,
Yeah.
something. Only guessing. I didn't catch a lot of big ones. I got over 20, I reckon, that were 40 to 46, which is pretty good.
Wow. Yeah, over a kilo. So. Yeah.
But early on, I was fishing very marginal flats out in the lake, and nearly every one of them has been what we're encountering all over the Gippy Lakes at the moment, 34s to 37s. And it's
Wow.
grouse. It's great fun.
Ah.
And Deethy, they're piling out of the water when you hook them because it's so shallow. And when they come up and snaffle up the bent, they're buffing and they're charging it, and so addictive. I've caught so many bream in my time, and today was just like brand new first day I've ever done it.
Wow.
Aren't I blessed, really, to be?
Yeah.
I call myself dumb, and I'm proud of it. I'm the dumbest bloke I know, and so to get a kick out of that again, Teethy, I want to stay dumb because I'm taking videos for you, and I did a few for other mates, and I did one for Naughty, and I did one for Mitch, and me mate Havo, and I've done it, and I'm just giggling. I'm thinking, there is something seriously wrong with me because
I was going to say it sounds pretty fun to me, mate.
Oh, I know it is, and I'm blessed to have it too. I will admit that, and hang on, that's just today. Let's go back a bit. Not all about me. I've had other mates that are throwing muss lures into very shallow water. One mate in particular, he loves throwing the muss around, and James Russell, he said, Brett, I was listening to the first podcast, our first one, and do you remember how I brought up a mate, Ben Hodgkins, throwing mussels into like a foot of water and how he's hooking bream? Last weekend gone, he was listening to the potty.
Yeah.
That came up.
Yep.
And he said, oh, I looked around at this boat and I had a muss tied onto another rod. He said, well, I might as well try it while I'm here. And he was catching fish at the time, by the way, and he threw that out and he ended up with 26 bream, not all on the muss, but nearly all on the muss. And he was just throwing it out into the shallows, slowly winding it in, and unbelievable. To me, again, I find that hard to comprehend. I keep calling it the black rock. You throw it in, and look, while we're on the subject, here's me ugly homemade one, Deethy. I think it's focusing in a little. Hang on,
Yeah, yeah, I can see there. So you've got
Yes.
this is the one that you described last week. So you've
Yep.
got a real mussel shell,
Real mussel shell. Yep. Yep.
and you've cleaned it all out,
Yep. This one's got a
and
bit
then
manky because when I glued it up, it didn't quite go together as planned, but it has caught bream. I mean, that
and
versus the real thing, which is pretty special. That's looking good. That looks the goods.
yeah,
And as usual, I like them ugly. And I've got stinger hooks. See, there's a split ring. So I've got stinger hooks that I lie down once I open the shell up, and I drop the stinger hooks in the middle, and I glue it all together, full of araldite, so that
yeah,
it's tough. They can't puncture it.
yeah,
It's not hollow. And Deethy, they eat it. They love it. And the little dangly bits, because you know how the stingers have got the black or red or
yeah.
whatever color. Yeah, so that's the bus, the BG Master Bus.
Bass. Now, to be fair, I'm not sure that's comp legal, but I'll leave that to someone else to decide.
True. True. Yeah, well, that's true because it might be actually it's real shell
It's a real shell. I don't know.
with a glue surprise.
With a glue surprise. That's it. That's it.
Maybe that could be illegal.
Yeah, I
Hey,
don't know.
wow! I
I
never
don't know.
thought of that.
It's
Interesting.
so,
Okay. So
but
that's
still fun.
oh yeah, that's still part of the Gippy Lakes chat. Oh gee, where do I stop? I mean, I had another mate Havo out there on Saturday, and he got 40 bream to 42 centimeters, all in the shallows. Mario Vukic was right next to him because Mario put up a little video. Actually, it was Mikey that put the video up, and I was watching it with Mario was commentating, and they caught a beautiful bream 40 fork. Nearly got it wrapped up around the lecky. And in
Oh,
the background, I'm looking at him. Said, "There's me buddy Havo in the background." Oh, I'm thinking that Holland's Landing's getting busy, and so that was good.
yep.
And on all accounts, the Vukic boys they smacked them, which is good to see. Stevie Wheeler's been down in the same area, Lake Victoria. He's smacked them. And who else? There's Peter Nord. He's been out on the Mitchell Flats. He's been doing the Nico Flats. I don't know whether these names ring a bell with you, do they? You would have talked to
Some.
yeah, you would have.
Yeah. I've talked to Mario, and I also know Peter Nord from Hurricane, and yeah, actually, I mean, it's probably a good time to mention, as we lead into this to this next Hobie comp in particular,
Yeah.
but maybe also the thing. We're going to grab yourself and Naughty doesn't know yet, but I'm sure he'll be up for it.
I've already warned him he's coming on the show. He said, "All
Fair
right,
enough.
all right."
Well, we're going to get him on the collective. So we have a Zoom meeting every few weeks,
Good one.
and we're going to get him on and have a chat to the boys. So if anyone that doesn't know, that's for the people who subscribe to the Bream Fishing Project. They become part of a group. We do a couple of Zoom meetings, and that's going to be part of it. I think that'll be an interesting chat and a bit helpful to the guys who are pretty keen on comp fishing. So something to look forward to.
That's a great idea, mate. I'll leave all the tips and hints for how to catch bream in that area for the collective. If you want to get on board and get listening, this is a good impetus and a good idea to get on board because I've had one go with the collective and mate, I've had a ball. It's just great to sit
Yeah.
back and listen. Don't have to
Mm.
put your 2 bobs worth in, but you glean so much out of such a diverse amount of anglers. And gee, Naughty will be very interesting, and I'll even get something out of that too because I don't get to talk to him a lot about what he does.
Yeah.
So that'll be very interesting. Like that.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what that means? That means this show has to come out on Tuesday.
Good, because then it'll be Thursday following. Is that right?
I think the meeting's on Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday.
So I can't remember.
Well, there you go.
So yeah, so you jump on board and have a look. Mate, what we might do, since I've broken the flow, mate, we might run to one of our sponsors.
Cool.
So for those of you listening to the show, you'll know about this. Anyway, so fishing.com.au, your one-stop bream lure and tackle shop. Pick up the latest tackle, including Muscle Vibes Cranker Crabs, OSP bent minnows, Z-Man plastics, Eco Gear lures, and dial rods, reels, and tackle. Same day shipping, shop where the world champion, the Australian champion, and the current ABT champion shops. Fishing.com.au, online or in store at shop 18/29 Kiora Road, Miranda. Now, just before we jumped on, I opened up the page to have a bit of a look at what is going on, and this is his front page at the moment. So, a couple of things that caught my eye. The first one, I'm not sure whether you can see my pointer, but the first one there is the Strike Pro Astro Shrimp. So this is a new one out of Strike Pro, and it's in the prawn style of blades with the little stingers on the back. Personally, I've not seen these yet, but they do look pretty good.
They do.
The other things that I think are cool. Now, we haven't used the hybrid shrimp down at Bem River yet, and I think that could really play into things. Just that super slow sink, and a very realistic prawn. I think that could be a bit of a winner. Have you seen those in the flesh?
I have not. No, I haven't quite. No, I haven't seen them yet. Not the hybrid. No, with the little dangly legs at the front there. Interesting.
Little dangly legs and a couple of trebles, which are not shown in the picture there.
Yeah.
On that list, there is the Strike Pro Astro Vibe. So this is a lure that came out a while ago, a few years ago, but I remember it playing into the Victorian comps. I'd say it's 10 years ago. And when we do get back into the blades, I did bring one up from the garage to show the people. So there you go, mate. So fishing.com.au.
Okay, that's interesting. And the Crush City Imposter, I see too. I know that's been getting a fair bit. I've been getting feedback on that one too. So that's another lure.
Yeah,
that I think is gaining in popularity. So good stuff.
Definitely. Well, there you go. All right. So, mate, where were we? What else you got to tell us about Gippsland Lakes? And one thing I do want to do, I want you to show us your special lure.
What? Today I reckon I caught fully 5 brim on the Switch 66, which is Nordy's bent minnow. But they really didn't eat it. I'll be honest and say that. They swirled and they ate it, but they just chased it, and it was a little bit painful. And I thought, well, this is not quite working and going to plan. So my last trip out was 3 or 4 days ago, and I got shredded. Can you believe it? On 8 kilo.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't think that happened.
Oh no. Well, the thing is with the Gippy Lakes is getting so salty. Excuse me. It's getting more barnacles. It's getting more black mussels, and so because it's so salty, there's on all the structure. It's just so sharp and treacherous, and because you fish so shallow for these brim, when you hook them, there's only one way they're going is sideways into structure. They can't go deep. Some are bouncing out, and so I'm heavy-handed on them and trying to get them in real quick double time, and lock drag. But some we just can't turn, and they're shredding me within seconds. So I've had to go and make. I think 2 days ago I made 8 or 10 new. I call them hard-on softs now. Not the
hard on.
Hard on soft. Now I know it's a silly name, but we've laughed about it. I want to call it a hybrid. It'll probably will always be the BG hybrid, but look, there's too many hybrids around. Naughty's inclusive, so I want to call it. See, it's a hard on soft. So it's like a hard body on soft. Now there's me. That caught probably 30 brim today. So that's a Z-Man. I don't even know what they call that grub with the
the one with the split tail. I can't remember.
Tail or something, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's that. Do you recognise that hard body head? Strike Pro.
Looks like a Strike Pro.
Well, I taught that a lesson. I chopped it in half.
Yeah. Did you ring Rick and tell him?
I should have. I think he might like it. I don't know.
He might.
You just never know. And there's the 2 double hooks that hang off it, and so I've chopped the lure in half, and then I've inserted a that one's actually a bit of wire. I run out of stainless steel hooks, and so that's just like a actually the hook kept coming off, and it'll come off now easy too, so I've got to rejig that, but I was running out of stuff to anyway. That hits the water, and it's got the bib, so it's got action.
Yeah.
which I keep saying doesn't matter, but maybe it does. And but it runs through the timber. Look at this. Look, straight across the back of my hand. You can
It's nothing.
you can go through timber time and time and time again. And when I break the W's or they get blunt or what, I can just replace them. Look at this. I mean, DT, the hook's off.
Yeah.
Put it back on. You got to be kidding. And I don't know about you, but I always use a clip at the front. I've
Yep.
always got when I tie my leaders, I'm always go down to a clip and then I put the clip onto the lure. So I just find it really quick and easy to change lures. So
Sure.
yeah, but anyway, that's I've never used a Strike Pro one before. Hang on, here's another one. Wait, I don't even know what this lure is. My good buddy Brian Lazaro gave me a heap of hard bodies during the week. He said, "Oh, we'll never use these, Brett, but I know you will. You'll tinker with them." Oh, look, that's got a scale on it. We know that
It's got a scale.
that caught a fish today.
Tell me, with the wire that you put into it, how do you secure that into the hard body?
Yeah, good question. That's important. So when I chop it in half, there's usually a cavity in the head of each hard body, so you can hook the front end or the gape of the hook into that and glue it in. And again, I'll use araldite or even use super glue and just plastic, and push it all up and it goes hard, and you'll never pull that wire out. So that's how I just secure that. But yeah, they're rough.
Then how do you get over your plastic? Then you've got this bit of wire hanging out of the back of the lure. Do you just push it backwards over it?
Yeah, so that wire comes out. The wire comes out the back there. And before I put the W on, obviously I cut a little bit off the plastic. I cut a few ribs off, and then I push it up and I glue it. See, that's quite taut and glued. And then I push the back up, and then I put the double hook over that eye.
Yeah.
That's just a bit of wire, which you can see there's a gap there already. So that's been coming off today, so I've got to fix that. But anyway, that's it in a nutshell, and you virtually never get snagged all day. And that's got no weight on it, because historically when I fish snags, I put a lot of weight down under the bib or close to that hookup point there. So and I have over the years with the clip, as I've mentioned before, that I always use a clip. Sometimes I run just a little wee running sinker, little tiny one, little split shot even, and to give it the weight to dip down. But it's a pretty ugly lure. So I've renamed it, Deethy. It's the hard on soft.
Hard on soft. Fair enough.
And I've talked to Nordy. I want it in the range. Hurricane hard soft. It's got a style.
Well, it could be made. It could be made with just no plastic on the back. So,
and you could change the plastics, put whatever you want.
Put whatever plastic you want. Yeah. You could put your old plastics on it, ones that you've already used.
Yeah.
And the head's been ripped up a bit.
Good one.
It's all good.
It's all good, mate. So that's what I've been using the last few trips. But other guys have been now. Paul Melov's dad was down there today. Alex Franchuk, which I know you've interviewed maybe many a time.
I've interviewed Alex only once, I think, but Paul a few times.
So I was talking to Paul a little bit today and yesterday, and he said his dad was going to be down, but I didn't know he was in the area. I didn't actually bump into him today, but I'd left the water about probably 2:00, 2:30, and Alex, he did the Arvo shift. He came in behind me, and it was at Hollands again. I think it was out in the lake where I was, and he was getting a brimmer cast as of, I think it was 4:15. So he found them as well. So that's how alive and well the Gippy Lakes are. And so the exciting part now is to go full circle and talk about the first Hobie event that's going to be at Eagle Point.
Yeah,
and
very exciting.
Yeah, Nordy's sponsoring it. I think it's fantastic. He's been driving for this for that long. Oh, have you been privy to that as well? Have you known about him trying to get one up and running in the Gippy Lakes, or?
Oh, not really. Only in passing. To be fair to say that I haven't been involved. So
yeah, okay. Well, I know it's been a passion of his, especially with the Hobies. He's really loving the Hobies, which is great to see.
Yeah.
And maybe I should enter because I'll be a senior, won't I? I'm an old fart now at 61. Am
Yeah.
I?
Yeah.
So
Mate, you'd be up for 2 prizes if you win.
I'm a minority now, mate. Actually, let me expand on that. There is no such thing as minority in fishing. That's what I love. No kids,
Yeah.
no seniors, and particularly with the women, no such thing as minority.
That's right.
That's what I love about angling. Everyone's equal. So,
Yes.
and with the Hobies, everyone's so friendly and so. I'm really hanging myself here for not wanting to do it. I'm going to probably have to do.
It's good peer
Oh
pressure,
my
mate. It's a real
God.
thing no matter how old you are, still peer pressure, mate.
Have we solved the issue with 3 big fish in a live well? Because
Yeah, I'm sure I think they've got permits for that.
have to have, wouldn't it? Otherwise, it wouldn't
Yeah.
go ahead, obviously. Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be a measurement comp. But at this point, and my understanding is that's not an issue.
And let me just quickly expand on the Eagle Point launching site as there's new facilities just being built there. It's absolutely incredible.
Mm.
I won't go into that because when you see it, you'll just go, wow. But you've got the Mitchell River that exits right near the launch and it branches down into what's called the silt jetties, but it also goes to the river mouth. So there's 1, 2, 3 options there. You could go upriver. But there's also right there at that launching facilities, there's the lake that you can launch from right next to where everyone will be parking. And it's a real shortcut to Paynesville.
Right.
And so there's so many options there. I reckon it's an ideal grand final destination if I was to have a say. So this will be a great test run. It'll be interesting to see what the feedback is. The best part is that whole area, if you drew a circle 5 Ks around that launch, which takes in a lot of lake and rivers, the whole area is fishing incredible. Like
Really?
it's not unlike BAM, but they're all bigger fish.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yep, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. So did that come up on your screen there?
I can see it. Yep.
Yeah.
Eagle Point.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Right there. And see, there's so much lake to fish. Paynesville's probably 5K away, maybe an hour's pedal. And
Yeah. Right.
Paynesville itself has more structure in the Gippy Lakes than anywhere else, as in
Yeah. Okay.
pylons, jetties, moored boats and so forth. And the lakes are fishing so well. Most of the bream that are being caught right now, and I reckon this will go on for another 3 months, all in shallows, very shallow water.
Okay. Okay.
So it's not imperative to go deep, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And it opens it
That's
up for
interesting.
everyone. So, yeah. And you can get out of the wind in various scenarios there. As I look at that map, I can see, if it was an easterly or the westerly is the main wind, of course, but no, not really. The summer, it'll be easterly. So you could get out there in Jones Bay. You can see that marked up there. And you could even head in.
Oh, yeah.
You could even head into the Nicholson River. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, there's a lot of options here. I think it's going to be out of this world. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. And yeah, I think for anyone that has the opportunity to get down there and take a week off, essentially, you can go and fish this one and then head up to BEM, which will be just amazing. Yeah, great start to the Hobie season.
And a footnote to that, Deethy, is that the Lake Tyre system is still chock-a-block full. And some people may say, well, that would fish really well. But no, it's a complete opposite. It's fishing terrible. It is so full that all the fish are backed up into the tea tree and nearly into the bush, you might as well say. And it's so hard to get a regular and continuous bream bite. Even the flathead that are coming out of there are really strange looking fish. They're like baseball bats. It's strange. They're not getting the food that they could or should. It's just a really weird thing. So it was going to be a disaster if it were to go ahead as part of the Hobie round. So this is I can't believe how big a win this is. And I'm excited in the sense that this will be a fair income great showcase.
Yeah.
And on the commercial side, like all the tourism and the caravan parks that'll fill up, and people watch comps and they see what they do, and they'll move in and say, right, let's go and fish that. Oh my God, look at the bags. Look at those size of those brim. And
Yeah.
it's going to happen. You'll see.
Yeah.
You'll see. It's going to be big fish and a lot of them.
Yeah. Very good, mate. One thing I was thinking about, going back a couple of minutes, was you're talking about the mussels that come back in Gippy Lakes. Now, I remember one of the first interviews I did with Paul Malov, I think when they got massive bags. I can't remember if it was the ABT or Vic Brim, but they got huge bags. Painesville. Yeah. And but I think the mussels were dying off for whatever reason at that point.
They were.
And I think the mussels might have been dropping from the pontoons and stuff. That was my gut feeling, because he said it was just on fire.
Yes.
So,
and I reckon too, he was, I don't know about early days with the live scope, but he was able to approach those pylons and structure. I've heard that interview, and he was like chugging along and saying, no brim on that snag or pylon. That jetty's, oh, look, there's four actually behind the pylon. And then he was throwing the muss in there. And I think, if I remember, he's using about 14-pound leaders too.
That's right. Yeah. He's using heavy leaders,
and he was horsing them out. And I think Alex was too. He was having all sorts of trouble and grief horsing them out. But I think they won the comp, didn't they? They
won the comp.
Yeah.
I can't remember the bags, but just massive bags.
Yeah.
And also remember them upgrading the tackle on the mussels. They pulled the hooks off and went stronger or bigger hooks, went different hooks.
That's interesting too, right?
Which they come with a great hook. But then again, if you're reefing something out on 7 or 8 kilo, that's not what those hooks are necessarily designed for.
That's pretty telling. Yeah, it's and also too, even if the mussels were dead or dying, and it's interesting, they could have been dying, but I mean, the brim have grown up eating mussels all their lives. And in fact, today I had a mate of mine that is historically a bait fisherman, but he was actually throwing blades around today because he couldn't get bait. And he's a good lure angler too, Brad Stokel. And he and his mate caught their bag, 14 brim, and they kept them. And they brought them home to eat. And they opened them up, and I said to Brad, I want to know what those fish are eating. And every single one of them was full of black mussel, tiny little mussels. So if that's not the biggest cue for the upcoming comp.
Yeah, wow.
And he got all these fish on black blades that I've given him. So I didn't throw blades today at all, but he did.
Wow.
And he whacked them, and he caught over 30 fish all between them. They kept their bag each. So isn't that interesting, Deethy, isn't it?
That is very interesting, man. That is very interesting. It brought to my attention when you said that, the tiny mussels. You got two. You got the blue lip.
Yep.
The tiny one, micro mussel.
Yes.
I think. And then also Dowley's, the Outback Brimmer baits. They brought out the small one as well.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of different small mussels which might come into play.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I love when I pick my mussels for lures. That's why I pick them. I think
pick a little one.
I pick a little one.
Wow.
Because that'll appeal to big and little brim, I'm sure. Well, it has.
Yeah.
I haven't caught a lot on this, I'll be honest. I've only caught 10 brim all up on me homemade bus. But I will be fair and say that I've hardly thrown them.
Yeah. Okay.
But time will come forward. And now that I'll be putting this on the collective. You watch. Maybe I'll put the I'll put the challenge out to the whole collective. You must catch a brim on a homemade or rejigged or lure that's it's been spiked up, or you've had your own personal
100%.
Own personal.
And you know what? Anyone that's been fishing for a while has a pile of lures that they could definitely go and cut in half.
Or people just tinker. They put stuff on
Yeah.
lures, or they colour them, or even if it's just throw a bit of colour on them, or put dangly bits on them, or
Yeah.
could be interesting.
Very good. Well, I mean, with your what do you call it? The hard on,
The hard
hard
on
on
soft.
soft.
Look, see, it's hard on soft. There's
Okay,
a soft.
hard on soft. Maybe it's soft on
Soft.
hard.
Well, Tony said to that. He said it should be soft on hard. I said, I'd prefer to keep it hard.
Fair enough, mate. I was looking at that, and I know you throw it into timber.
Yeah.
Up here, I reckon that would be gun in the mangroves where
Oh,
mangrove shoots are an issue.
for sure. That's what essentially I fish. These are tea tree routes that I fish on the lake edges.
Yeah, right.
Same bloke, different haircut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, there you go.
I better send some up. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, mate. You better. I want to see some.
Okay. I think you put this to me about 12, 18 months ago, actually.
I have hit you up before. What's the chance of you giving one away to one of the collective guys? We'll random draw one off.
Beautiful. I'll have to.
All right.
Does it have to be pretty?
I think if it's uglier, it's better.
In that case, it's a deal.
Fair enough. All right, mate. I might cut away. We've got one more sponsor we need to get to tonight,
Yep.
and that is HWS. So, look, if you're in the market for a new fishing kayak or looking to make some upgrades to your existing kayak, or possibly looking up, Brett,
Oh,
looking up,
sorry. Yep.
possibly looking at kayak fishing tournaments,
Yeah,
then
right. I'm with it.
HWS is the place to go, mate. They have a full range of Hobie kayaks and stock the latest kayak accessories, and are really dialed in when it comes to the best kayak fishing setup for the casual fisher and the tournament angler. hws.com.au, online or in store at Shop 3 638 Pacific Highway, Belmont. James offers free delivery on Hobie kayaks across all Greater Sydney, Central Coast and Hunter. Now, I had the good fortune of looking at a couple of Hobie kayaks today, and one thing that caught my eye, so that they've been running out the Passport. So the original Passport is an epoxy based kayak. I think it's epoxy, super light, and they've been selling those out at just under $2,000 with a couple of bonuses. But I had the good fortune to see the new Passports. So Passports, they've brought out a Passport R, which stands for a rotor mold. So it's a plastic Passport. And I got to tell you, for a starting kayak or a base model, I was really impressed. And they're just a little bit more rugged than the original one. So a couple of options there for people if they want to get into a kayak really cheap. Definitely take a look at the Passport 12. The 10.5s have sold out in that model. And if you want to go the next step, then maybe have a look at the Passport R. Anyway, hws.com.au.
And
There you go.
they've been reduced quite a bit too. That's incredible.
Yeah, they've come down quite a lot. And I mean, the newest thing in the last couple of years has been the Lynx, which I just picked up another one today. Absolutely amazing kayak, super light, just simple. Like you can pick it up and they're fast off the mark. I don't know.
Easy transportable.
Yeah, that's right. They're stackable. So if you got to take two and you got to put on the rooftop, they're a great option.
Yeah.
But mate, the new Passports, I think there'll be a little surge towards those, just in terms of them being a bit more rugged than the Lynx, a bit heavier for sure, but also a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
So you know, it depends on which way you want to go.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
there you
Yeah. Hey, Deethy, I want to just take 20 seconds out here to mention, talking about Hobies and dealerships and so forth. We've lost a really important fella in this world of Hobies. A lot of people in Victoria and particularly Gippsland would be familiar with Rod Bendings. He was his name is David Walsh, and he has sadly passed away in recent weeks. He was very important in a lot of people getting started in the Hobie and getting just the service. He was a really nice, actually a top bloke, one of the nicest blokes you could meet. I didn't physically meet him, but I had a lot to do with him over the phone. He helped me deal with a crisis with a burned out kayak and trying to get a new one and insurance. And long story short, he bent over to help people. He bent over backwards. He sponsored people like Jason Dean and even Ruth Beebe. She got involved too, because she used to live down that way. And there was others. Look, I just wanted to make mention, when you lose great people like this in this world, whether he's in the fishing world or not, and he was very sadly missed and taken so young, 63 or 4, I think. But I really wanted to ramp that up, Deethy, because I don't know that you could meet a better fella than David Walsh. He did so much for so many. So I wanted to give that a big mention. He was a top bloke, and I think a lot of people would agree with me. I know they would. Sad.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It's definitely a hard part of life.
Not good. It's been tough to hear that one. That really hurt me. That one. That left a hole.
Yeah.
Left a hole.
Yeah, that's not great.
No.
Yeah, I know that he that one of the great anglers in the tournament series, David Shanahan. I remember seeing his kayak all loaded up with Rod Bending's World and that sort of stuff. So
yeah, well, see,
yes,
Dave used to write. Used to make books, like kids' books with the Rod Bendings. It was a little. That's why if you saw the logo on David Shanahan's boat, I've got one too. I've got it on my kayak. There's a little character there. There's a little kid with a hat on, and that he had books about a kid that was fishing, and yeah. Anyway, so that's a long story. I won't delve a lot more on that. Only to say that, geez, he's left a hole. Oh boy, such a nice bloke. Yeah.
yeah.
So Vale, David Walsh.
Fair enough. All right. So, mate, I think we're probably done with the
Yep.
fishing report. So let's move on to. I had actually a couple of anglers, but one in particular reach out and ask me to give a bit of a rundown of how you'd start fishing with blades. Now, back in the day, I can't remember. I think I've spoken about this before. There was a couple of years where I couldn't use blades, and people catching winning comps on them, and it's very frustrating. You're like, they're catching fish. I can't catch a fish.
Me too.
And then through practice, and then just having a great session one day, eventually they became a go-to for me. So you go from, I can't use these are stupid, they're not used by smart people, to I've got 4 rods on, they've got 4 different types of blades.
And Deethy, how are bream meant to eat metal? What the? Or any fish eat metal?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
That's part of the argument.
I was in your boat.
So what I did is I went down my garage, and I'll display these slowly as we talk, and I just picked up a few. Actually, I might talk about them. Probably one of the things I would start with, if I said got a new angler, never fish with blades, there's 2 main sizes that we'd use to target bream, and I've just got the Eco Gear ones just for example because I had a few of them.
Yeah.
So we've got the VX 40, so that's a black one.
Yep.
Not shared. Okay, and then the VX 35, which I can't seem to get to roll. There you go.
Yeah. Yep.
So 2 colors I like there. Now, I think the bream anglers typically, like the tournament anglers, would probably lean a little bit more towards the 35s. However, my first success was on 40s. And most of that reason was I was fishing deep water up to 10 meters. But I was sponsored by Atomic at the while, so using those, which I'm going to get this one out of the packet because I think you're going to be excited by this one.
Yep.
And yeah, using those because you can cast them a lot further. You spend a lot more time in the water. And if you're in 10 meters of water or 6 or 8 or even 5, you get to the bottom a lot quicker. So that'd be the first thing. I would start with a size 40 rather than a 35. You can just throw it further. Now, I got this one out of the packet because look at the hooks.
Wow. Geez, I'm a tad excited to see that.
I mean, they actually don't come with W's anymore. This is an old one.
Wow.
But yeah.
Yeah, okay. Go Atomic.
And even in a weedless presentation, so the hooks are all pointing up.
True.
So
right.
How good is that?
Oh.
So, what I'll do is I'll run through what I would do, and then we'll cut over to you, and you can give your sort of tips and tricks. So first of all, I would start with a 40 size one, a bit bigger, cast it out as far as I could cast it, and probably with I would use a 4-pound leader, maybe 6, but probably 4. I would find an area where it's not a snaggy. Like, don't do your first cast under a bridge because you'll catch fish, but you're going to lose half your blades. So find some deeper water. Maybe it's a bit of weed, but a little bit snag resistant, or devoid of bottom structure. But you need to know there's fish there. Then the most effective. See, if I talk about St George's Basin, the most effective retrieve I've got is just tiny little hops, like 100 mil, 200 mil off the bottom, just to the point where that lure vibrates, and then drop your rod tip and let it go back to the bottom, and then do it again. Just do it all the way back to the boat. So just as your basic retrieve, I would say less is more. Go slower, smaller. Don't be afraid to pause it because the brim will come and hit it off the bottom. They will come down like this thing, the way these are weighted, the weight's in the front here. They'll go down and sit into the sand a little bit, tail up, and the brim will come and grab it off the bottom. It doesn't have to be moving. Or as soon as it moves, they'll hit it. So, and then after that, you've got, I guess, if you're trying to work it out, I mean, a sounder is going to be helpful so you can see fish. So you're not casting to areas devoid of fish. And then, just persistence, I guess. Once you've practiced that sort of small hops, you can mix it up with all sorts of different things. You can do big rips. When I first started hearing about blades, guys were lifting their rods from rod tip on the water to above their head, doing massive rips and letting them fall. And you'll get a good flathead doing that too. But mix it up. But first pointed, I would do just small hops. What do you reckon, Brett? I'll throw it over to you, mate.
Yeah, let me question you on that too. Are you envisaging that lure hopping off the bottom 10 centimetres or 6 or 2? Are you thinking more like less is better, or
Yes.
not big
Between
long rips up?
Yeah, if you'd only give me one retrieve, I'd do between 10 and 20 centimeter hops, and I'm only lifting till I feel that lure vibrate.
Yes. Yep.
And now one of the things, I don't have one of them with me. Actually, I have I'll come back to that. One of the best ones for it is Naughty's Hurricane one. Their blades vibrate off the bottom, I think, quicker than any.
That's important.
So they're particularly good for that.
The sting or both? The vibes or the sting or both?
The vibes. Yeah, that's right. They're the Vibe 35
Yes, okay.
or the Vib 35, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
The other thing, and I've got one of the stings here. So it's one with stinger hooks on the back. It's another good starting point for people because of the way the stingers are, they just don't snag up. You just don't lose as many on the bottom.
Good call.
And the brim or the fish tend to not throw them. Once you get those little hooks in, they can just be in the lip and they just don't tend to come out.
And I think too, adding to that, Deith, is that the stinger hooks, no matter what blade, they are free swinging. So when a fish, particularly brim, but other fish too, when they approach it and suck on it, they're freer to like nearly go in the mouth. And I also believe that the fish quite often want to disable a bait, like with crabs, take their legs off, and prawns maybe nip away at them. So I'm sure they look at them and think, oh, they're tasty little bits. I'll get rid of them first. So hard to prove that right or wrong, but I'm going with that. So and I think it helps. And but my spin on it is very similar indeed. It's to start off with. You do long casts, and it doesn't matter on depth so much. A lot of people say they don't use blades in shallow water, but I have found that quite contrary to logic, because some of my best blading sessions are in really shallow, very expansive, wide out open water. You can cover so much water and you can rip the blade through pretty quick. It's not big lifts either on shallow water. It's just little in the equation of feeling the lure. All you're getting the lure to do is just to go like brut, 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 but it's constant. It's full on.
Yeah, okay.
And if you get a little bump or a push, then you can slow down and maybe go brut, sit down, brut, but you let the fish tell you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've gone and cast that lure and you thought, I want to go and fish over there. So you go to wind up really quick, clunk. So they're
Yep.
super fast. You think, oh, that must be a little salmon. Oh, no, it's a bream
Yes.
or it's a ludric
Yes, exactly.
or indeed a whiting because they love a fast retrieved.
Oh, mate.
It's
Yeah. So
so deadly.
what you just explained then was one of the techniques that Stewie Dunn uses. Now I think we spoke about this before. It comes into rod tip up, rod tip down, all this sort of
Mm.
stuff. He was exceptionally good at seeing the line and seeing either a tick in the line, but equally seeing it hit the bottom. He's just better at it than
Yeah,
me.
right.
And his lure would basically hit the bottom and he'd move it. It would do that.
Mm.
It wouldn't stop. It was just super quick. Just hit the bottom up, hit the bottom up, hit the bottom up.
Wow.
And tremendously successful.
Mm.
Whereas because I wasn't seeing the line, I'm more likely to go, I want to make sure that lure's on the bottom. That's where you're going to get most of your fish.
Yep.
So I'm going to wait. And if it sits there for 3 seconds, I don't really care
Mm.
because a bream will come along. Sometimes it's just sitting on the bottom and the next minute it takes off.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah.
Definitely that. And the other thing I'll add too is, I've always talked about the Tetley tweak or the tea bag, the Lipton lift. They've got other names too, but let's leave it at that. And I'm talking deeper water. So what I'm talking about tea bagging is directly dropping the blade down below you. And yeah, sometimes deeper the better, but quite often fish are sitting in 3 meters, or there could be fish sitting in 20 meters. But a lot of species that you'll encounter in an estuary situation will be under you as you're drifting over them in 3 to 5 meters, 4, but whatever.
Yeah.
Don't ever think that fish are spooked by a boat above them in clean water, clear water. Yes, you will and could spook a lot of fish, but in my experience, even in very clean water, 3 to 5 meters is not a problem. Fish are used to seeing boats and things over above them, and they're not spooked by it. They don't see it as something that's going to eat them. It's not like that. People will say, how in the hell are you meant to catch fish, tea bag and a blade under you? The fish are going to spook. Well, I know I've talked about this. I've caught them in 3 foot of water, dirty, coloured water. And the tea bag is so deadly. This would, I know I get sick of talking about it, and I'm sure people may get sick of even hearing it, but it is so deadly, Deethy. And here's the reason, is that you've got so there's the boat above the fish is on the bottom, and here's a blade coming down, moving in front of him. And because it's tea bagged, you're not traveling a long distance. So the fish, for one, he doesn't have to chase it because it's tea bagging. And you could be drifting with current, wind, or both, or no movement. No movement's ugly because you're not covering water. So you want a little bit, ideally, of movement. Get the lecky going, or pedaling, get it. You got to move along slowly. So that the blade's bouncing in front of the fish. Now, a bream, ludric, tailor, whatever, especially flathead, so deadly on flathead. People don't get this. Blades and flathead just equals have to catch them. The fish is on the bottom, and so what's going on is you're getting maximum movement up and down, but no sideways movement, really, just your drift. So you're in their zone, so they don't have to chase it, for one, and that means they don't have to encroach on another fish's so-called territory. So a bream might own this bit of bottom. He's in a school, there's 10, 12 fish around him. He doesn't have to go and compete for that blade. It's right in front of him. So there's a few little things add up with how that tea bag thing just is so deadly. And because it's in the strike zone for so long, even when he doesn't want it, I've often talked about this. Oh, I can feel it. He's there. You can nearly feel the fish breathing on it. Now that's stupid and it's silly, but guess what? When I explain that to other people, they go, oh, there's something I don't quite. I said, there'll be a fish, he'll be there. And they'll be poking at it or bumping it a little bit. And so you just got to leave it with them and maybe slow it down more, let it sit on the bottom. I've had mates let them sit there for 20-second intervals. Now, that is a long time for lure anglers to do nothing. It's horrendous. I can't do it. I'm not good at that. But I've found a constant movement. And let the fish tell you, maybe quicker, faster, a little bit high off the bottom, but I'm talking, I reckon 5 to 10 centimeters most. 10 centimeters,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe just enough to get. So what you got to do when you teabag a blade to get it, you have to pull up the slack for one, and then you got to vibe it again. So it's nearly a double lift. It's like a take up the little bit of slack you've got, feel the weight, and then give it the brr, but never ever the brr, dunk down. I don't find that works for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, maybe for flathead, maybe because they will eat anything anytime. But
Yeah.
most species that are bottom hugging and in that zone, I've found that the more you lift it and the more vigorous you do it, you'll catch salmon and tailor. In my
Yeah.
view, in an estuary situation, if you want to catch perch and bream, even bass, this is deadly on bass. People don't. I can't even begin to tell you how many bass I've caught doing this. Didn't know that it'd work on them, but geez, does it kill bass? I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
I'm sure guys do this in tournaments in the lake scenario, deep in 40, 50 foot of water. I know they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they do. So yeah, in a nutshell, could expand more, but that would probably do for a start. For blading, the only other thing is long casts over very shallow water. That's pretty deadly too, as I've often
Yeah.
talked about, and that's more of a like a winding it through. And when fish are in the shallows, they're eating.
Yeah.
They're not sitting in the doldrums. They're in there for they don't want to be in there because the predators could grab them and eat them. They're vulnerable. So when fish are in the shallows, you can be a little bit more vigorous. You can be a little quicker because it's a reactionary bite, and sometimes quicker is even better, even for black bream.
Yeah. Interesting. Really interesting.
Done a lot of it. I love the blade.
Well, me too. I mean, I went from not fishing them to having them just being my go-to. And I'd go down the basin, in particular, St George's Basin in New South Wales, and go out, and we'd sort of go out to say 3 meters, and the wind would be blowing offshore, and we'd just start in 3 meters, throw a drift chute to slow your movement, and then just drift until you find them. And sometimes they were in 3 meters, sometimes 5, sometimes 10.
Yeah.
And you never really knew. Sometimes they were in all the water, but often they were just in one. You go, okay, if we get to 7.5,
Yep.
you can see them on the sounder, you start getting them.
Yeah. And Deethy, before we wind up on the blades, what colour? What do you reckon? Because everyone asks me that. What colour do I get? Because often I've been asked, especially when I was writing for VFM, they'd say, yeah, fine, I've got the gist that your blades this blade, but what colour? So what do you
colour?
reckon?
Okay, I'm going to give you a few because I like a few. In the atomics, that's the muddy prawn color. Sorry, it's fallen out. But the Hayu color, it's like a greeny or an AU sort of. The Hayu was my favorite by far, and I used it a lot. I was sponsored by them, and genuinely loved it. Still use them.
Yep.
In the Eco Gear, that color there, which is hard to see. Color 439.
Yeah, that's
so it's an
yes.
olive.
Yep. I'll bake that up for sure.
Yeah.
Olive, yeah. That was always the
Olive
go-to.
color.
Yeah.
Orange belly.
Yes.
Black.
Oh, black's
Black with the orange dots. Now, for anyone that wants to hear Morgo's take on this, the show that I did called Time Travelers with Chris Hickson and Steve Morgan. So that was a recording that they did a talk before a Hobie comp. And back, I was on an iPhone 4. I threw the iPhone 4 on the grass. So 10 years ago, hit record on the voice recorder. And 10 years later or whatever, I released it as a podcast.
cool.
So that goes back to, I might be episode 43, but I can't remember exactly.
I'll write that down.
But yeah, time traveling. And then my other favorite for a long time in terms of color was this orange one with like a heartbeat line in it.
Yeah.
And we back in the day, we used a lot of Eco Gear, so that's why I had stock on the wall.
Yeah.
But Naughty's range are really good too. They're in the Hurricanes, in my opinion, because of the way they vibrate very quickly off the bottom. It doesn't take much to get them moving, and also just the ones with the stinger hooks are awesome.
And they're a good size too. I find the stings is they're not too big, they're not too little, and
Yeah.
they've got great. See those stinger hooks? They're like little circle hooks. When you study them, they've got that little up kick right near the barb, and so they really do pin them, and they're right in the corners of the mouth. And that's important for release and all that too. They've got a very good hook up
Yeah.
rate. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you get a kilo fish on them, you can often have that little stinger hook in his lip, in the blue lip, and it's not coming out.
No.
Like it's in there. You're catching that fish unless you break your line.
Very true.
So,
And the other thing to point out is that the stinger hooks are more robust than the trebles, because trebles, I know, and I know I'll always can trebles, but but they do. You got two sets of trebles on a blade. When you go to get the trebles out, clunk. Oh, there's one busted. So you got two hooks on the back one anyway. Oh, let's get the front treble out. Oh, I bust two hooks. Oh.
yeah.
So you got one hook on the front and two hooks on the back that were both trebles. And I'm overcooking this because quite a lot of times you can catch 10 fish and you haven't troubled the treble or busted it.
Mm,
The other thing about trebles I find is that on a blade, they will foul up on the treble sitting underneath the line, back treble.
sure.
So there's a lot of that, particularly with teabagging blades. That does happen a lot. So that's a
Okay.
fault with the teabagging.
Yeah.
And sometimes
used to.
too, well, I take the front treble off and just use the back, or
Sure.
one back double hook. Yeah. But the color wise, you have to start with black. I didn't think black would be a real hit, but it just is. It works in all colors of water, and it's universal across the board. Everyone's got black blades. You tell me someone who hasn't got a black blade.
Yeah.
That angler does not exist as a
Yeah.
lure angler.
Well, that's it. I mean, and with what we're doing, the collective, where we're doing focuses, at some point we will get around and we will do a blade challenge and dive really deep into this, like, and try and cover off on what brands might be better or worse, and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, definitely.
The early
think
vibing on the Hurricanes is I actually forgotten about that. That was one of the greater lures, and I got a little bit involved in developing the sting with Naughty early days, in that I wanted the trailing hooks to be short. I think that's another important distinction too. You've got the stinger hooks too long. I find a lot of short takes. They just don't quite hook up. So I think that's important too, to try and get a blade with. You can buy generic, say, eBay blades, but they've got stinger hooks that are really long, and they're very frustrating. So don't fall into that trap.
Sure.
As cheap as they may be, it's NQR. Not quite right.
Not quite right. Fair enough. I mean, with a lot of these, they've been tested for 12 months by experienced anglers before they go to market.
That's true.
Or 12 months, 2 years, or whatever it is. It could be any amount of time.
Yeah.
And being refined and all that stuff is they've tried to work that out of it. So, yeah.
But if the truth be known, all colours work, all blades work. The thing is that they don't all work the same.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's important to adapt to your area. So get to talk to the locals, even the shop owners, and they will put you onto the right blades for the right scenario. Because weight does come into it quite a lot.
Yes.
Because you got flow, you got depth, you got structure. There's a little bit involved, but when you keep it simple, novice start off, I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. I'd say if anyone's out there that hasn't done it, it's a really effective technique, and definitely probably better in the winter months up here anyway. Like I do a little bit more in the winter months, but I've caught fish on not blades but vibes in the last week. So yeah, still viable in the summer months.
There's no greater example for how deadly blades are today. When my good buddy Brad couldn't get bait, and he's fished lures with me quite a bit. We've fished together. And he thought, well, we're here now. We'll just throw the blades out and see what happens. Geddes is always raving on about them. Let's see how we go. 25 brim later. And in shallow water, this is 2 to 3 foot, long casts. snaggy bottom. They lost a few lures, the boys. There was 2 of them out there, and they did lose. I saw them lose a few, but geez, they were busy hooking fish.
Yes.
And it was,
Yeah.
and Brad commented on just before we pushed record. He said that was the best lure fishing session I've ever had. So he's hooked.
There you go. Wow.
Mm,
Wow. Well, I think I spoke about this last time. I did take one of my mate's son and his friend out and it was his friend's first time, never fished before. And we used a stinger style blade, and he caught his first fish, which was a tiny little whiting.
yeah.
So no skills, absolutely. Like he's not done it before.
Mm.
Just throw it out, hit at the bottom, and you try and explain it to people, but it takes time for people to work it out. He got that. He got a brim. He got a little jewfish, a little mulloway.
That's cool.
First day.
That is really cool.
So, yeah, if you haven't had some success on blades, it's really worth your time. You'd be surprised how many people it becomes their go-to for a while
Oh,
because they catch plenty and big fish.
you know, I've got a huge tally of brim in my fishing diary, and I reckon half of them are on blades, and I'm proud of it.
Wow.
I love it. I reckon I fair income reckon I've caught about 10,000 brim on blades. There you go.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Not a problem.
Well, there you go. Well, guess what, Bretto? Mate, it's time for me to wind you up.
Oh, it was your turn this week, wasn't it? I went.
Is there anything else you want to cover before we shoot off?
That's next time, mate. I've got plenty to talk about, but that's, me. Yeah,
Well,
that's. I've really enjoyed it, Deethio. I'm looking forward to getting on with the job, mate. We'll get a few more under the go. So we're going to do it once a month, aren't we?
Once a month, we're going to aim for that first week of the month.
Okay.
Not sure whether it's going to be Tuesday or Thursday. This week, this will be out on Tuesday, all being well. But we'll see. But the first week of the month is what's important. And as we've done right now, we'll just record in the last week of the previous month. And yeah, if people have got questions and anything they want answered, definitely shoot us a message. If you like what we said, let us know. If you didn't like, let us know. And yeah, we'll go from there.
And let me add too, just quickly, that a couple of the boys from the collective have contacted me via Messenger.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I've responded and enjoyed it. So it's great. So yeah, I like that little collective idea. That's a great name for a group of anglers. So I cannot say enough that if you really want to learn quick and fast and get on board that collective, it's a great initiative, mate. Well done. Good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, mate. Let's roll the outros, mate, and I'll talk to you next week on the collective.
They'll be there.
They'll be there. All right. Thanks, mate.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you were informed, inspired, and entertained. If you were able to learn something or just enjoyed listening, please consider subscribing and rate us on your favourite podcasting platform.